How long have you been practicing in as a lawyer, and then when did you get into immigration law? What's the reason you got into immigration?
Well, I've been practicing as an attorney since 2003. So as soon as I graduated from law school, I went to St. Thomas University School of Law in Miami, and I took the bar, passed it, and got sworn in immediately in October. So I've been practicing since then. Before going into law school, I dabbled a little bit as an assistant in an immigration law firm, and I was always familiar with it. So my parents are from Iran, so I've always been familiar with knowing that people come from other countries to the United States. So I always were familiar with people, having their own struggles when it came to immigration. My parents specifically did not struggle with immigration. They came on student visas. My father was sponsored by the Texas Department of Transportation. They got their residency. They had a smooth journey. But we knew people who didn't have as smooth a journey as they did. And we had, in the community, you knew of cases, and you knew that there is a process to bring somebody to the U.S. So that was always very familiar to me. When I graduated from law school, and even while I was in law school, I pretty much knew that I was going to enter into the field of immigration. And when I started, it was very challenging for me to find a job. I couldn't find one. And I decided for a little bit to kind of open up my own practice, and I did. And I realized that I needed to get more experience, because this is life-changing for somebody. Yeah. That person may not go to jail, but what if they get deported? Mm-hmm. You understand? So I took a step back, closed down that practice, and actually went back to Texas and worked at the law firm that I was working at as a legal assistant. And from there, I was able to gain some experience. I ended up coming back to Miami. I got a position at an immigration firm here. I went to Washington, D.C. I got a job as an attorney doing only employment-based immigration at a law firm there, came back. And I really was able to just keep my head down and know where my place is, and know that I serve a purpose in gaining as much experience as I possibly can. And after putting myself out there for 5-6 years, at that point, I was ready to open up my own firm again. It wasn't necessarily something that I had necessarily dreamed about. Some people's like, oh, wish I could be my own boss. It wasn't about trying to be my own boss. It was that I knew at that moment that if I really wanted to give the best service and quality to a client, I don't think anybody could do it the way that I could do it at that moment. And that's really what led me to go open up my own firm.
And that's a great confidence that you had in yourself.
Yes.
To invest in yourself and then take the risk in yourself. And then also, like I said, have the confidence to say, I feel like I could do better for this particular person.
Yes.
How many years did you say? So you were for 5 years or so?
From 2003 and then to 2009. So yeah.
And that
5,
was one
years.
Particular firm, or you worked at a couple different firms?
I worked at a total, counting Texas, Florida, and DC, a total of 3 firms.
3 firms. And you got the mentorship that you felt that you needed so that you can learn the ins and outs, and then...
Yes. Mentorship would not have been the word I would use. Okay. I would just use exposure.
Exposure.
Yes.
Ah.
Mentorship means somebody invests in you. And
you felt that they weren't investing in you?
I cannot say that one of the firms I worked at, there was any investment in me.
Wow.
No.
Wow. So what? So you just kind of went in there and just absorbed as much as you could.
Yes.
But you felt that they weren't providing you, I guess. Would you have stayed? I mean, if you had the mentorship,
Well, when you are also in a toxic environment as well, and you're dealing with an employer whose objectives are not aligned to yours, and you cannot provide that customer service satisfaction, and you cannot provide the proper legal advice because you're too busy doing other things, then this becomes a deficit. Wow. And so I was not going to put myself in that situation any longer.
I like that. I mean, I because I was fortunate. The firm that I was at, I got mentorship. I was trained. I learned. I got to watch and observe great, amazing trial lawyers, personal injury lawyers who handle the most catastrophic wrongful death cases and teach me the ins and outs, so that I was able to develop good habits, and then whatever things that I didn't like, I was able to kind of throw away and not do, and then eventually open my own firm. But it's unique because you had a different path. You had a toxic environment that didn't give you the mentorship, but you were able to gather the details that you wanted and then say, I can do this on my own.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. But I make very conscious efforts of that in my current firm to be able to provide mentorship and guidance to my entire team. That's something that I put, as a matter of fact, even yesterday, we have monthly legal training programs because I'm also an adjunct professor at Nova. I teach law students immigration. Why wouldn't I teach my team immigration?
Yeah, I love it.
So we have a monthly meeting in the calendar, and I teach them a topic, because they need to know as much as I know. So I put it in the calendar, and I do like I'm speaking like a lecture. And I talked to them yesterday about different types of immigration bars, and they were super fascinated with it.
Tell me, what is that training session or that look like? Is it part in person and you're also like webinar?
No, it is a webinar. It is all on Teams.
Okay.
And I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I speak to them like I'm speaking to my students.
That's awesome.
I say, this is what the statute says. This is what the requirements are. This is how it applies to us. And then I'll bring in even case client examples of different cases that we have going on in the firm. This is why we're working on this waiver for this particular person because of A, B, and C. So I give them that back end knowledge so they understand what it is that they're doing, and they're not just being a robot, or they're just not being doing what is being told. They have comprehension, and they have the opportunity to actually understand the impact that they're making and why they're doing what they're doing.
When you're doing this, you're in your office and you're in front of your camera, in front of your, it's like, so Zoom, Teams. I'm not great with Teams, but it's the same kind of concept. Is you're doing a virtual meeting with your entire team. Is it mandatory?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
We don't give, I mean, I to be honest, I don't even tell them mandatory. This is what they want. Like, it feeds them.
Yeah.
When you are a legal professional, you are guided by knowledge. That's what you want. That's what fuels you. Yeah. If you are not fueled by that, you should not be a legal professional in any area of law. So when I feed them this knowledge, it rejuvenates them. Yeah. And this is something that they want.
This is one of like the reasons I love having this podcast and interviewing other lawyers and business owners, because you are a phenomenal business owner. From what you've told me, you got 50 employees. They're all across the place. You've grown tremendously. We're going to talk more about it. But I learned so much from just having these talks, because we just had our Friday meeting today. I have a Friday meeting every Friday. We go through there's an agenda. We look at next week's schedule. We look at settlements. We look at all different facets. We run through each thing. Then we do a round table. Anyone has questions about different particular cases, I'm always here as a resource for the team. And we were just talking about next week, there's this big Florida Justice Association, seminar that's going on. And I told the team, I'm like, the 3 attorneys, I want to send them up there at least for a few days to go and get that knowledge, get that information, because you always have to stay a student of the law.
Yes.
And that's amazing that you incorporate that, because I don't think a lot of law firms incorporate that kind of training for their teams.
Yes. Well, based on the interviews that I have with people, because I still do the interviews, no, they do not, which is unfortunate, because one of the questions that I ask when I interview a person,
and you're talking about interviewing like a new employee, a potential new hire, a new lawyer.
I do the final interview.
Got it.
They go through different vetting stages, but then I'll do the final interview. And one of the questions that I ask is, okay, you've been in the practice for 5, 6, 7 years. Who taught you how to do what you do?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I was just thrown, and these are the cases. And, I get impacted by that, because that hurts. Like, these are people's lives. How are you just going to throw people's lives to somebody without teaching them what to do?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And that's something that I strive for in my practice, to not allow that to happen. So we have a lot of meetings. We have meetings with even department meetings. When somebody in our firm is assigned a new case, the paralegal has a meeting with the lead attorney. Like, you have to know what it is that you're doing. And this is what also leads to our high client success rate, because we take into account every single client that we have to make sure that they are well taken care of throughout the entire process.